I will now call this regular meeting of the Sebastian City Council to order. If you'd all rise for a moment of silence and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, which this evening will be led by Councilmember Dodd. All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Here.
Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember McPartland is excused tonight, and Councilmember Nunn.
Here.
Thank you.
Council, are there any agenda modifications? All right, hearing none, we will move to proclamations, awards, and brief announcements. I have a couple of proclamations, or an award and a proclamation I'll give from the floor, and then I'll return for one up here. All right, thank you very much. Daryl? Sir? Daryl C. Mayor? Yeah. Daryl has served on the MPO Citizens Advisory Board since 2003, so we appreciate your service very much. It's been a long time there, and you know, we very much appreciate you in the city of Sebastian. And for that, be it known that Daryl C. Mayor has given exceptional service to the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee for the responsibility assumed and for the unselfish service rendered to the community on discharging the duties of good citizenship. This token of achievement is hereby awarded, presented this 23rd day of March, 2022. There you go.
Thank you. Sure. Just want to thank you. I know living in Sebastian has been the greatest. I remember the first time I came up, my mother was driving me. We were meeting some friends up here, and I said, where do they live? They said, Sebastian. So I said, okay, let's go. Riding along US 1, and all of a sudden we passed the city line. I looked at her. I said, and I was living in New York City at the time. I said, when I slow it down, this is where I'm coming. And sure enough, 97, we built the house. The kids went to school here, Pelican Island School. We had one that went to the middle school, but all three graduated from the high school. So this great town, and I love it. It's the best place. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's people like you that make this a great town and the service that you give us. So thank you so much. Holly Hamilton and Sydney Rigard. How you doing?
Thank you.
Hi, how are you? Good. Very nice to meet you. This is a proclamation in celebration of the Children of the American Revolution Day of Service, April 5th, 2022. Whereas the National Society of Children of the American Revolution is the nation's oldest and largest patriotic youth organization, founded April 5th, 1895. And whereas the National Society focuses on patriotism, service, and education about our American heritage, and whereas the Treasure Coast Society is active in our local community promoting this vision to the residents of our city and surrounding community. And whereas the Treasure Coast Society is dedicated to helping with the youth in our community through the Kids Helping Kids Program Committee. And now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Sebastian, Florida, do hereby proclaim the City of Sebastian strongly supports the ideals and objectives of the National and Treasure Coast Society of the Children of the American Revolution. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Sebastian, Florida, to be affixed this 23rd day of March, 2022.
Thank you. May we say a few words?
Of course.
Hello, my name is Sydney Regard, and I am the current state president and society president for the Treasure Coast Society CAR. The Treasure Coast Society Children of the American Revolution would like to thank you for recognizing the NSCAR Second Annual National Day of Service for April 5th. The Children of the American Revolution was founded on April 5th, 1895 to instill patriotic values in the youth of America. The CAR trains good citizens, develops leaders, and promotes love of the United States of America and its heritage among young people. It is led by the members who are between the ages of 0 and 21 years of age. This year, our society will be making cards for children undergoing cancer treatment at the Arnold Palmer Children's Cancer Center in Orlando, Florida. Our state project for 2022-2023 will be raising funds to support children's cancer research through this center, and we will be supporting the children by providing cards and encouragement for the children there. Thank you again for supporting our efforts to promote Kids Helping Kids, COPE, and recognizing our organization's National Day of Service and the Children of the American Revolution. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And let me take this. In honor of always supporting our group and everything and supporting the ideals, we have this gift for you from the state.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. And I'll now read a proclamation for Gopher Tortoise Day, which is April 10th, 2022. Whereas the gopher tortoise has been living on the earth for 500,000 to 2 million years, and whereas the gopher tortoise today is listed as threatened in the state of Florida and the United States of America, and whereas the gopher tortoise is considered a keystone species, its burrow protects more than 300 other commensal species, some of which are also listed as threatened. Whereas having gopher tortoises and other species in our area helps to sustain the area's ecology and provide man with a source of joy and appreciation for nature. Now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the mayor of the city of Sebastian, do hereby proclaim April 10th, 2022 as Gopher Tortoise Day. Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yes, under brief announcements, we have on Friday, April 1st, Chamber of Commerce concert in the park. The Sebastian River High School Band will be there as well, 5:30 to 8 p.m. On Saturday, April 2nd, Sebastian River Area Art Club show at Riverview Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. On Saturday, April 9th, Craft Club of Sebastian show at Riverview Park from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on a final note, we, Sebastian, are the recipients of our 4th year Tree City USA Growth Award. And that's a great accomplishment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other announcements from council members? All right, hearing none, that'll move us to item 7, which is public input. At this time, we will encourage anyone who wishes to bring any new information or requests to the city council not otherwise on the prepared agenda to come forward at this time.
Hello, my name is Gabrielle Alfredo. I live at 401 Columbus Street, Sebastian. I came here tonight to ask you, the City Council, to do a better job on protecting my rights under the 88 law. As a person with a disability that has to depend on her service dog to function in society, mobility and seizures, more signs and animal control. Under animal control, individuals walking around during the events to make sure the ADA law is enforced. I have been to many events held in this beautiful county, and my service dog has been attacked on 2 occasions by non-service dogs. Ironically, they have had service dog jackets on. And these attacks can cause me to fall and have a seizure, which can cause seriously physical or mental damage or even my death if I fall and hit my head. The following ADA law states, okay, and I provided you a copy with the ADA law from the U.S. Department of Justice. Can you please draw your attention to the highlighted sections? I can see. I'm doing bad, aren't I? I got this. Okay. Service animals are defined as dogs that are individually trained to do work or perform tasks for people with disabilities. Examples of such work or tasks include guiding people who are blind, alerting people who are deaf, pulling a wheelchair. Next page. Sorry if I'm reading too fast. Alerting and protecting a person who is having a seizure, reminding a person with mental illnesses to take prescribed medications, calming a person with post-traumatic stress disorder. I'm fine. During a anxiety attack or performing other duties. Service animals are working animals, not pets. Leave it. The work or task a dog has been trained to do must provide a directly related to the person's disability. Dogs whose solely function is to provide comfort or emotional support does not qualify as service animals under the ADA. Okay. A service animal must be under the handler's control. I got it. Staff may ask 2 questions. 1, is the dog a service animal required because of a disability? And 2, what work or task has the dog been trained to perform? I'm fine. I got this. Thank you, I'm done.
All right, thank you very much. You did an outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else this evening that would like to bring something forward to the council that's not on our agenda? Are we still doing Zoom? We good?
Nobody's raised their hand.
All right, thank you very much. Council, that moves us to item 8, consent agenda. Council, what's your pleasure on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, that passes unanimously. Item 9, there are no committee reports or appointments unless you guys have something to bring forward. Hearing none, we'll move to item 10, public hearings. We have item 10A, public hearing for ordinance number O-22-03. I'll open that public hearing and ask the city attorney to kindly read the title.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a second reading of ordinance 2203, proposed land development code amendment, Article 22 and Article 26, amending sections relating to murals, and set a public hearing for April 13th, 2022. The ordinance reads, an ordinance for the city of Sebastian, Florida, amending land development code section 54-5-22.2, providing a definition of terms regarding murals, amending section 54-3-16.3, providing for exceptions pertaining to murals, providing for severability and repeal of law in conflict, providing for codification, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carl.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this was original first reading was on February 17th, and council set the hearing date, the second public hearing for today's date, March 23rd. There was 2 advertising dates in our code and within the statute, 15 days and 10 days. So we didn't meet the required newspaper advertising timeline. So we're going to ask that council continue this item until a date certain, which would be April 13th, 2022.
All right, Council, I'll ask for a motion to continue.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we, well, we have to table this.
Continue it.
Okay.
Continue.
I move that we continue this public hearing until April
13th.
13th, 2022.
Second.
All right, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. Item 10B, second reading of public hearing of ordinance number O-22-05. Mr. Anand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance. It reads, the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, pertaining to the City of Sebastian Code of Ordinance, Chapter 38, Elections, providing for Section 38-2, Forms of Petition, Filing Fee, amending the qualifying period, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, again, this is a second reading. This is to enact the charter amendment that the voters voted in at the last election, and this second reading will put the qualifying period and the fees and establish those according to the will of the people that voted on the election.
Thank you very much. Council, what's your pleasure on item 10B?
Mayor, I move approval of, is that O-22-05?
I second that.
Anyone from the public wish to discuss this item? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
And Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item 11A is resolution number R-22-10. Mr. Anand.
Yes, the resolution reads, a resolution of City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, rescinding resolution R-20-16 and R-21-11 respectfully, amending the Community Development Block Grant 2019/2020 and 2020/2021 Annual Action Plan, ratifying R-19-17 and R-20-25 respectfully, approving the 2019/2020 and 2020/2021 Annual Action Plan, recognizing the city's attempt to reconcile appropriation of funds, recognizing the city's decision to forego additional community development block grants, open paren, CDBG, close paren, funding authorized by the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, open paren, CARES Act, close paren, and providing for conflict, providing for scrivener's error, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlisle.
So this one's a little bit of a challenge. So we received funds from CARES to do community development block grant, and we followed the guidelines that were outlined in the rules, but when we submitted it to HUD, they said, no, it didn't qualify, even though it specifically says sidewalks. Sidewalks didn't qualify. We've met, Ms. Frazier and I had conversations, Zoom conversations with HUD, and we could not reconcile and feel comfortable on how to spend this money. And if you remember when Councilmember Dodd mentioned at the last meeting, this federal money, if it changes, you have to pay it back. Well, this is an exact example of where we didn't feel comfortable that if we were to spend those dollars, we wouldn't ultimately have to just pay it back, because it basically, they would not follow their own rules, and we couldn't interpret their rules, and their only response to us was, read the rules. So Ms. Frazier can probably expand on it further, because she had a lot more conversations than I did, but I can tell you it was not fun. And though we hate to turn this money back in, we don't want to have to spend it and then repay it.
This money hasn't been spent,
It has not.
and it's just the monies that they provided us. We're not comfortable figuring out a way to spend the funds because they're not very clear on the rules. Is that basically in a nutshell, Ms. Frazier?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Carlo did a wonderful job explaining the frustration that we have experienced. Thank you.
So this only applies to CV1 money and CV3, correct?
CARES Act funds, correct.
Right. Okay.
Council, any questions of staff?
So does the money for the home repair program still work?
Yes.
All right. I mean, could we put all of that money into that program? No.
No.
Okay.
So that was their challenges. It just wasn't we just weren't comfortable with any of the answers that we got. And you had to be on the call to understand the frustration.
When they questioned the sidewalk repair, did they also question any of the administrative dollars that was associated with that?
Well, that was all, we ended up paying all of that out of our regular CDBG entitlement funds.
Okay.
So that didn't come out of, any of that money come out of this.
Okay, so it's only the $50,000 for the sidewalk repair that,
So it was just the sidewalk replacement that we were funding out of this money.
yes.
And what's ironic is they weren't able to spend this money. I know, go figure, right? But because then nobody could find a project to spend it on. So they amended the rules and added sidewalks and other public transportation elements into this program. But when we wanted to do a sidewalk that they literally added into the program to allow us to spend the money, they said it wasn't eligible. And we argued that it clearly was a COVID expense because it got people to walk rather than ride in cars and Ubers and buses to go to the Sebastian downtown, because it's the one on North Central. And it allowed people to exercise out in the public where they couldn't before. Now, that's not what it's for.
Okay, so we now are going to fund that sidewalk out of discretionary sales tax funds, or where are we going to, where are we going to pull funds out of the budget to pay? Because we've already built it.
Yeah, well, we paid for part of it out of our community development block grant. The rest of it's going to come out of our discretionary funds, and then.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's correct.
Anything else for staff right now?
That's correct.
This is what we get for pre-spending.
Well, we didn't spend it.
Okay.
We accepted the funds, but we did not spend it. So that's the key. So.
Or pre-allocating federal government.
Right. No.
I spent 2 days watching some of the stuff going on up there, and
yeah.
boy, I'm telling you, I would just as soon say thank you, keep your money. How dare we be?
Yes, but the problem is it's the people of Sebastian's money, and that's where the kicker is. I mean, it'd be nice.
I understand all that.
Yeah, it'd be nice to say we don't want the federal government's money, but for us to do that, we are losing out on the people's money. But anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue? Hearing none. Council, what's your pleasure on item 11?
I move where we approve resolution R 22-10.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Nunn?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item 12, new business. So we have a first reading of ordinance number O-22-02. Mr. Anand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Florida, amending Land Development Code Section 54-3-9.4, criteria for concurrency and final development, orders by providing for a new section relating to school concurrency, amending Land Development Code Section 54-3-9.7, criteria for adopted level of service standard, open LOS, close paren, relating to recreation, amending Land Development Code Section 54-3-9.8, criteria for methodology for determining demands on concurrency facilities pertaining to recreation, amending Land Development Code Section 54-3-9.9, criteria for determination of available capacity relating to parks and recreation facilities, amending Land Development Code Section 54-4-18.4, criteria for information to be included in site plan relating to recreations, amending Land Development Code Section 54-4-19.11, criteria for required improvements and design criteria relating to recreations, providing for severability and repeal of law and conflict, providing for codification, providing for scrivener's error, and providing for an effective date.
I'm glad I get to read the proclamations and not these things. I can tell you that right now. Mr. Carl.
And I'll ask Ms. Frazier to go into more detail, but I'll give you the 30,000-foot level. So as part of our new 2040 comprehensive plan, our land development code has to be in compliance with what we call our concurrency issues, and that's the school, parks, open space, transportation, all of those. And so these are some changes to our land development code to help us maintain concurrency with open space and adopting the school concurrency. And with that, I will turn it over to Ms. Frazier before I get too far in the weeds.
Thank you. I'm here to answer your questions, unless you'd like me to start from the beginning and go do an overview.
Okay, this just brings us into compliance with what the law is. So this is something that's necessary based upon our land development code?
Our comprehensive plan update, we need to make sure that our codes are in compliance and compatible with that update.
Central
And
house cleaning.
this is the beginning
Right.
of many that you will see coming before you in the future.
Okay, this is a basic house cleaning item, I think, and so, go ahead.
What was the riding factor that made us drop the, from 5 acres per thousand to 4 acres per thousand? I mean, we've gone down to 2, from 2.5 to 2 in neighborhood parks and 2.5 to 2 in community park contributions. So what was the riding factor in doing that?
Well, so that number has been incorrect since the comprehensive plan in 2010. So in 2010, it was established that it's only 2 acres per thousand, and so we made sure that it was compliant now. So we didn't drop it down, it already was at that number.
Okay, and I just have one more question on this, on all the green.
Yes.
Don't use the green anymore, it's very difficult to read.
I think
Make it
Mr.
gray or
Anand
something.
had the same comment, I apologize. What I'm
Okay.
trying to show you is what changed from when the Planning and Zoning Commission looked at it and gave their recommendation of approval. Then staff went back and looked at some things and based on our conversations, thought these might be applicable changes.
Okay, on page 4 of this document, which would be, I'd have to go find it in our agenda packet, which would be page 68 of 72 in our agenda packet. At the bottom, use of money. This is in the case that the developer chooses to use the in lieu of fund and to pay the city money instead of provide land for the purpose of parks. We're saying in that section 4 use of money that the acquisition of parkland or facilities reasonably related to servicing said development. We already have within the city a definition of our recreational system. We have 4 zones. We have multi-city parks. We have, area-wide parks. My preference would be that we say that the money would be used within the zone that development resides in. We may not be able to buy land or build something adjacent to a new development, but we certainly could use that money within the zone, possibly, that it's in. If we expand the city, we might expand to 5 zones. So it would be within the new zone, wherever that happens to be. But I think to be consistent with the way we treat parks and recreation within the city, we allocate money on a zoning system. We allocate, the Parks and Recs Committee manages it on a zone system. They have money they use in each zone to do emergency repairs without having to come to council. So I would feel like that we would want to do this on the zone thing instead of saying it's got to be serving said development in that section.
That makes sense, Mr. Carlo?
And I completely agree, but we have a second phase to that, and you and I had that conversation. I completely agree. This section was existing, so we haven't modified it. But after you left, I thought about the section about regional parks, which don't fall in a zone. So I'm just asking, would we want to say, just thinking that it has to be reasonably related to servicing said development, but the neighborhood park must be within the zone of the regional, the zone of the development.
Okay, I don't have any issue with, I mean, the wordsmithing is fine with me as long as we don't set up a situation where we're producing a document that is not consistent with the way we manage our parks. And we produce a document that lets people in a new subdivision have an anticipation that their developer has given the city money. That money is going to be spent on them or near them. Mm-hmm. And if all of a sudden they come in and say, well, gosh, why haven't you built that park? And we say, well, we did build one. It's on the corner of George Street and so forth. Well, that's not near my development, but it is within that zone. So however you have to wordsmith it is fine with me. It's just that it needs to be, I think it needs to be consistent with the way we manage the parks.
I agree. We'll bring it back for second reading. We'll make some annotations to that and let you all review it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well written. It's a large, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in here that I had to read it 2 times, but there's a lot of stuff in here, and it's fine. There's nothing in here that,
Council, you agree, Vice Mayor and Mr. Nunn, do you
I agree.
that those changes should be made?
Yeah, definitely.
Councilor, okay.
Also very happy that the agenda is available online, so I could zoom into that green.
Yes.
I'm going to write
Well, I
no
just want,
green
I want to thank
right
City
here,
Clerk, because she
no
actually produced a
green.
separate copy of the document for us to make it a little bit easier to, I think she must have tweaked it when she printed it, so the green
Right.
was easier to read.
But the green's got blue writing in it too, so that even makes it worse.
Yeah, green is what
wonderful.
they use on the screens that where they keep people out of the picture and make the
It's
monsters
St.
in.
Patty's Day month.
We were trying to represent green space.
I just have one thing,
Yes, sir.
Mayor Hill.
Yes, sir.
On these subdivisions that does not have enough space for a park, and they purchase property in lieu of, so then the city would use that property as a park?
Yes, sir. They could either use the money to purchase property, if they can find some within that area, or the money can be used for facility expansion in that area or for the neighborhood's benefit. And so I think getting back to what Councilman Dodd was stating, the wording in our understanding was that the acquisition or the facilities would be there to serve the development, but I think we should make it clearer that if it's more of a neighborhood park, it should be within that development zone. But our community parks are community-wide, so we would have the ability to utilize those funds for facilities in a community park too. And the community parks do service every development, so does that answer your question?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I like that. There was just one other thing I wanted here. I think I lost my place, but actually it was about the part of a development. If there's part of the park or recreation area can be within it, and the other part has to be, can't be within it because they don't have enough room, that they move the other part to another place, as it has to be adjacent to or somewhere else.
Well, typically, you know, in a new development, they realize that they need to set aside parkland for their facilities. And if it's a gated community, then 50% of that, you know, if they have to give, we're just going to say 4 acres, and they only set aside 2 acres within the development, then they only have to now contribute 2 acres or money in lieu of. And I do want to clarify, this has nothing to do with our Recreation Impact Fund. That is a completely separate fund. This is land. This is making sure that our developments provide recreational facilities for the residents within that development, so that we can relieve some of the impact on our neighborhood and community parks. And that's the whole reason behind this ordinance.
Essentially, Sebastian, continuing to be the good stewards of the environment that we've been for decades. Okay, thank you. Anything else from council at this time? Anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue? All right, hearing none. Council, what's your pleasure? Item 12A.
I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't turn my mic on. I move approval of ordinance O2202 as amended.
I second that.
All right, anything else from council? All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Nunn? Councilmember Nunn?
Oh, I thought you said Vice Mayor, sorry. Yes.
Okay. Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Mr. Anand, do you have anything brilliant to bring us this evening?
No, Mr. Mayor, other than the information I offered you, it's up to you guys and for your guidance. I think Councilmember Dodd might bring up some issues.
Okay. Mr.
I
Carlo?
have nothing
All right,
further
thank you.
unless you have questions of me.
And how about the most amazing clerk? Nothing. All right, thank you. Councilmember Dodd.
Okay, I have a couple of things. Councilmember Partland is excused. He has a family emergency, and I would like to address, if it's okay with the council, I'd like to address the code enforcement process that
Sure.
he asked to be placed on this agenda at our last meeting. We received some information from the city attorney on the liens that are out and on some things, and I feel like that this is a good opportunity for us to do a revision or to redo a review on our code enforcement regulations. and take a look at the possibility of trying to reduce some of this stuff. There's liens on here that were for hiring people to cut grass, and I don't think we even do that anymore. We do? Okay. But they're back to 2015 and 2008 and so forth. And we might, as part of the review on this, we might consider the possibility of having some type of a, I don't know, a program in which we offer people an opportunity to pay less money and get their liens closed out, do something just to close these liens out. Secondly, I'd kind of like to see us rewrite the code enforcement rules to address the issues that we talked about at our last meeting. I think there were a lot of things said at that last meeting that were highly on point. And I would love to see the possibility of maybe even having lien reductions a part of the special magistrate's system, where if a party that has a lien and wants to try to reduce it, they have to go to the special magistrate and have a legal hearing where evidence is produced and where the special magistrate reviews that evidence and makes a determination and then makes a recommendation to council. You know, that's just one possibility, but in order to get to that, there are several other things within our overall ordinance on the code enforcement that we might want to consider as an opportune time to do that. And I think that information came out when we talked about this last one. So it's just a matter of the council asking the city attorney to address this and to bring us back some information on it. And I'd like to see what the sense of the council is on that.
Yeah, I'm fully in favor of that. I think that there should always be review of these things as periodically. So, you know, certainly I think that from my standpoint, I think that a review would be great. It's appropriate.
Me too. I like it too. So I don't like doing things just because that's what we've always done. We need to change. But things change, times change, and we need to keep up with it as a progressive and sustainable city that we are. Let's stay on top of this. I love it.
Okay.
And one of the things I would like to see us talk about is I noticed someone that happens to be an old friend of mine that hasn't lived in a property for probably 10 years, but I noticed that property still has fines against it. Is what can an owner of a property that has owned it for a long time already, that has fines against their property that had nothing to do with them as the owners of the property, what can they do? So I think that's something we should add in and talk about as well, because I'm sure it's probably not the only one on that list of.
The title process should definitely bring that stuff forward.
Yeah.
There's no way that someone can buy a home that has a lien against it without that lien being brought forward.
Right.
And I suppose there's one or two that have slipped through the cracks.
And maybe they're older ones mostly.
Yeah, so.
And see, that would be the case where if we come up with a procedure by which they can actually come into an official hearing with a special magistrate, provide their evidence. I sold that house 12 years ago, and the lien was not satisfied at the sale transaction, and so we may say, well, pay half of this or a third of it. The special magistrate may come back to us and say, this is the reason why that should be reduced or should not be reduced.
No, I'm fully in favor of getting legal advice on that, because I think that what we don't want to do is get into a situation where we're like just on feel reducing some of these fines.
Right.
And you know, then you become lawless, you know, so then it becomes a situation where, you know, I will park a motorhome next to my house, and so just rack them up, because eventually when I sell the house, you're gonna give these things away. So.
And I was gonna say, I only noticed that one because I saw their name on the list when I was going through it. I'm like, they've been divorced for over 10 years and haven't lived there for longer.
So Mr. City Attorney, do you need more from us would you need to sit down maybe individually with each of us and talk about this before you can go back to us, or what would you like to do with that?
I can do that, Councilmember Dodd. I can sit down with you guys this week to make sure exactly the review process, but I think I'm hearing what you want the review process to be part of the special magistrate, which I do agree. I think we also have to define what do you want the special magistrate to do, i.e. is it a hardship, and then we got to define what kind of hardship. That way you give that special magistrate the directions, he could, like what the mayor was addressing, that way we don't go into arbitrary and capricious decision, but we base it on a resolution or a policy or guidance, and that way that's great. Also, I do want to note that majority of these liens, by the way, are abated, meaning that they're done. It's just that little teeny-weeny amount that you all see. Some of them, as you do know, I added on the side, it might be a little bit different, but that's down the road, I hope. So, but.
And the question then we might have to deal with, is it worth $68 to us to keep a lien active on a piece of property that's been active for 14 years or 15 years?
Probably not.
And the other
that'll
side
be
of
up
that,
to you.
well,
Part
the
of
other
your
side of that
forgiveness
is I
program.
noticed some of these guys on here had 8 or 9 or 10 grass cutting liens on them, $60, $70 each. Well, maybe they should have been $200 each or $300 each, because if we have to cut somebody's grass every month or every other month for 2 years, we probably should be charging them more or making them pay more for the penalty for doing that.
Yeah, and I don't agree, don't disagree with that at all. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Sebastian, and I heard it, we just heard it today. Someone spoke about how wonderful Sebastian is, and when they slowed down, they knew that this is where they were going to live. And the reason Sebastian is great and amazing is because of the rules and our laws. Yeah. And so we want to make sure that we keep it wonderful and special and amazing. But I understand the desire to sort of move some of this process along. I think that, it's like you can't pick and choose what rules you like about a certain community and just go with those things. And so that's what I fear, could happen if we don't go via the special magistrate and get that legal advice when we're making these decisions.
I agree with that.
So,
I just asked, just give me like 2 council meetings to come back to you with an answer, but I feel free to come meet with me, because I think there's 2 different issues. Number 1, special magistrate to decide reduction, and number 2, the forgiveness, which probably should come before the board. But
tomorrow would be good.
I'm tracking. That's fine.
Special meeting?
You want it done tomorrow? Okay.
We can have it
I'm going to call a special meeting for Thursday night.
Is there anything else, Mr. Dodd?
Thank you. Yes, I do. I have one more.
Go ahead, sir.
This is another one of these, and it's I get myself in trouble every time I go into the city attorney's office. I've actually had several conversations over the past couple of months with the city attorney about some of our boards and commissions and some of the meeting things that I've noticed as I watch the meetings. And I would like to see what the sense of the council is on the possibility of us taking the resolution that we did in 2015, was 2009? It was done like in 2009, that lays out the process for those boards and commissions, and maybe even look at the charters for each of those, and to try to make some determinations as to the scope of those boards, and then do some training, maybe actually. I'm not sure that you could. Boy, some board and commission guys after me already. I'm not really sure that we could have a meeting with all of them together and deal with the particulars, for example, of the P&Z versus the natural resources on what their scope is and the way they should deal with stuff. As an example, some of the things that I've noticed is that some of our boards, they'll have a public comment, and they'll actually discuss the public comment and discuss items that can be done with that. Well, the boards all operate under the sunshine, and without doing proper notification to the public that it's going to be discussed, and without bringing the data in front of the public and making it available before the meeting takes place, you've operated outside the sunshine. So I know these people that are on these boards are completely dedicated and do a great job. I don't want to act like I'm questioning any of that. It's just that from a procedural point of view, I think the city attorney needs to make sure that everybody understands how that process works, and that all those boards and commissions need to operate in that way. I've just noticed some of those things as I've watched the meetings in the past several months.
Oh, sure. I mean, the 5 of us are laymen. So when we come up here and we start doing this stuff, it's new to us. So it's obviously someone who's going to be on some of these boards needs some direction. I think that periodic training is extremely important. And I also think that we should review the charters of the boards. And again, this is one of those things. It's just because it was right when it was written doesn't mean it's right today. And some boards aren't necessary, and I'm not saying that any of our boards aren't necessary, but there are times when boards become deemed unnecessary, and their charter may sunset, or it may be time for them to move. I don't believe that's the case right now with the city of Sebastian, but a review, I think, is very important.
Well, I know the city clerk has some avenues by which she can coordinate training. I think she's done that before. Florida League, the Florida League of Cities has people that can help her with that. Manny, our city attorney, can look at I think that's not an ordinance, is it? That defines that? Is it actually an ordinance?
It's a resolution, and you're correct, it's 2015.
Okay, so we can look at that resolution. It's just like the resolution for the council. It actually contains in it the agenda items and how it's laid out and all that kind of stuff, just like our resolution does. And it may be time to relook at some of the way the agendas are laid out. It may not be appropriate for every board to have public comment. I can't imagine why our Planning and Zoning Commission needs a public comment section, because everything that they do is as the result of a planning activity coming from our community development department.
Right, their job is a review of.
Most of their work is controlled by state law. It's
Sure.
not necessarily. So if they have an open public comment, I don't know what people can bring to them that won't get those people in trouble if they try to deal with it. So it's something that we need to think about. If everybody's comfortable with doing that.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, I am. And looking at some of their meeting outlines, there's a lot of things that can be changed on those meeting outlines. There's some things that probably shouldn't be there, because they're there for one thing, take care of that business, get done, and give us input as to what's going on. But those agendas are pretty long, and there's some things that could be adjusted on the agendas, I believe, so particularly towards the bottom.
Yeah, and the beauty of the boards and committees is that they're focused on those singular issues.
Correct.
And that's what the beauty of them are, is that it's important that we get good advice on each of those individual issues that our boards and committees are on.
Yeah, I would like to make a point, just for clarity for anybody watching or listening, is that we consider public input very important, and we're elected as representatives of the citizens, and we have public input so people can bring new things to us that we may not have discussed, or maybe one of us will take an issue up. Where Planning and Zoning Board, they have a job to review what's been presented to them. They're not there to bring new items up, and that's the only reason we would not think it makes sense to have a public input section for that board. I do have a question. When the new board members for appointed boards, do they have to go through ethics training?
No, the answer is no. They don't have to go to ethics training, but they're provided sunshine law, public records law, and the sunshine law, public records law, and open meeting.
Is there any sensibility, and I guess I asked that for the board members sitting next to me as well, is there any sensibility for newly appointed board members that we put it in our charters that they should go through ethics training when they first start that? So they understand the sunshine law, they hear all the ethics things that we discuss, or is it overkill?
I would just say that I believe the city attorney provides a synopsis to each individual new board member, the sunshine laws and those things that could get them into trouble. However, I would not be opposed necessarily to maybe having maybe the city attorney provide a more in-depth once a year to each of those boards and committees, their roles and responsibilities, as well as the ethics issues that could be involved in their positions.
Well, even as part of this revision, I think it would be perfectly acceptable to discuss the possibility of the city attorney and possibly in unison with the city clerk actually putting together some form of a document that each new board member that they sit down and go over with each new board member.
Sure.
I don't know that Florida League of Cities would want all of our board members trying to come into their classes, because they don't charge for those classes. And so they're looking at elected officials more than anything else in that regard. So they probably would not want that to
They do have online training, though.
There is online. But yeah,
Agreed. I think the attorney could do a fine job.
Yeah, like an annual P&Z, city attorney's going to spend an hour with them prior to their meeting, go over that stuff. That makes sense to me.
Because I know the Florida League of Cities, which they've done in the past, will send someone here to, if we want to put together a class, to teach that class. They'll do that. And so, but the problem then comes about is that each of these boards has a kind of a unique focus, and if we bring them we can bring all those people into a room in the chamber and have an ethics class given, but we can't necessarily talk to each of those, all of those people about the specifics of each individual board. That is best done directly with that board in a workshop, like the mayor said, at maybe an hour before a meeting or something like that. So,
That'd be fine.
yeah. So are we comfortable?
Sounds like
Are you comfortable?
Do you have a good direction?
I'm comfortable. I just want to just add that my main concern will be with the two boards that I deal with that have quasi-judicial meetings. So maybe more training for the actual chair specifically in those meetings, as well as specific training when it comes to quasi, what's evidence, what they can consider, what things like that. I can offer those trainings like I've done for the board, for the council as well. I can do it for them. I can offer them specific training on public records, on ethics, and also when it comes to planning and zoning and the other board, which I handle, which is construction board, they have specific requirements in the code, which I could instruct them as well and make sure they're aware of that. Because one thing is giving them copies of it. The other thing is actually, trying to teach them on them, asking questions. So I can do whatever you guys want me to do.
All of our boards and committees are covered by the Sunshine Law.
Yes, all of them are covered, but I'm more specific, concerned about the ones that have the public hearings.
Well,
Right, but it's tough for and I'm just saying that, when the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee or something, those guys can't go out to, like two of them can't go out to a tennis court and have a conversation about the condition of the courts and those types of things. And those are things that every single one of those individuals needs to know, understand, and learn.
So all of our boards should have training in public records and ethics.
Yes.
But I'm also focused on the two boards that have the public hearings, because those need more specific training about what the code requires of them and what the law requires of them.
Right.
Okay, so all the board chairs need to have some form of a review on how to manage a meeting and how the process goes and so forth. And then
Seems like I'm losing control of this meeting right now, if you want my honest opinion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just want to mention Robert's rules, yes.
Yeah, okay, I apologize.
Yeah, I think we all learned that a few months ago the hard way, so we're.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
So is there anything else,
Okay,
Mr.
I have
Donovan?
one more thing. I hate
Okay.
to do this to you, but
It's okay.
the young lady who spoke to us during public
Yes.
comment this evening, I believe there are some statutes that stop us from questioning whether an animal is a service animal or not. I don't believe you can actually walk up to someone and say, "Is that a service animal?" And I would think that if it's possible, maybe we can find out if there's some way, because what I understood from her presentation was that her service dog was attacked by animals that were kind of like fake service animals. And I don't believe our officers can walk up to a person and ask, is that truly a service animal? I think I've seen some stuff that said that that's illegal to do that. So, but I don't know if there's anything that the city can post in the parks or anything we can do, because she had a legitimate.
Sure, and if you don't mind, and I had this for me to have discussion on this as well. If you don't mind me interjecting, I believe we have rules for our major events that don't allow for pets, except for service animals. The public is clearly not aware of that, and I don't know. We're not posting.
We do.
So if that's the case and council is comfortable with that as the rule, then that needs to be enforced, because I can assure you that it was not enforced over the last event that we just had.
Okay.
And I'm a pet owner. Just to get that out, I'm a pet owner. I love pets. Nothing there. But if we have a rule in place, it must be enforced. And if it's not being enforced, then we shouldn't have that rule in place. So are we comfortable having that rule in place? I think is a discussion that we should have. I am. So if it is, then I think the enforcement, there were a tremendous amount of dogs in the park this weekend. And I didn't have any problem with them because I love pets, but that doesn't mean other people did not have a problem with them. So if it's the rule, then I think enforcement is important. And I think, though, it's also incumbent upon the promoters of the events to let everyone know on their flyers and all of their advertising that this is not a place for pets. So if we're going to go forward with the rule in place, then we need to enforce that rule.
Yeah, I agree with that.
There obviously are challenges with that. If you tell, obviously, anybody that sees a real service dog compared to one that has not been trained to be a service dog
it's very, very clear because as you saw, Gabby's dog, she sat next to her. The dog sat next to her. That's what service dogs do. They watch out. And when you see a dog running all over the place and barking and all that stuff, it's clear. But I feel sorry for the police department that has to manage that, because if somebody says, this is my service dog,
Okay, so
you're
I
not
would
allowed
only
to
say
ask
to
for
that.
proof. So I don't know what they do.
I would only
but-
say to that I believe in human nature and the typical goodness of man. And so I believe that a large majority of that situation and problem is resolved by enforcement.
Agreed.
And so, because most people are going to say, no pets, we're going to leave the dog at home.
Yep.
And it's as simple
And
as
they
that.
should.
And so, I guess we would ask that at those major events, if we're not enforcing them, then I suppose we should.
We'll make sure it gets enforced. Our challenge is that people buy those vests online.
Again, I'll just say that your majority of people are not going to do that.
Correct.
I certainly would not, and the people that I know in my family who have pets would not do that. And most of the people I know would not do that.
No,
So I think-
myself as well.
Yeah, you
If we
can
advertise it,
Can we advertise that on our Sebastian, on our site, and that reminding people that during events, and not just a specific event, during
Major
events,
events.
animals, major events, sure, animals are not allowed inside the park except for service animals? I mean,
We
is that-
have them at all the entrances. We have signs at all the entrances.
I
We
mean-
just have to enforce it.
maybe more advertisement outside of just,
It needs to be on the promotion.
before they get there.
Because if somebody comes from West Palm to go to our events, and they do, we had people coming down from Orlando to go to our event, they're not going to get there with their pet. and be very
Wait, they got a
pleased.
little Fido, what do they do with them now? So,
Right. So,
okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I can. I was addressed this issue. Actually, today I got an email from Parks with Brian about this specific issue, about ADA and what the police officers can or cannot do with the 2 questions that they can't ask. So I told them I'll research it and I'll get it back to him to get them an answer. So I think the next event is on April 1st. So hopefully by then we'll have, implemented, and whatever notice has to be given, different story, but I'll at least advise them legally what they can and cannot do as far as enforcing it.
and you could say as written by the 6 old grouches, or something like that. So, okay. Anything else? Mr.
7 crouches in here.
Do you have more?
Yeah, no, and I thank you. I apologize for extending the meeting. but-
Not at all, not at all. Always love to hear from you, my friend. All right, I think we've resolved all of the issues that I've had this evening as well. Vice Mayor Jones.
Yes, I think they're all resolved as well. To get back to what Ed was talking about at the park, obviously, I was there this weekend too, and there were some dogs that were going after other dogs and different things like that. But for the most part, people had their animals under control.
Sure.
But by us actually pushing to enforce this law, we're going to have some growing pains, so get ready for that because the complaints are going to come in.
Certainly.
But that's what we do. We make laws and we enforce them, so we will deal with whatever comes from that. So thank you, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nunn.
I think we've resolved everything I wanted to talk about, so thank you.
Excellent. We will see you all on the 13th of April, and there being no further business this evening, we are adjourned.